Have you ever experienced a moment so immersive that time seemed to dissolve, where every thought, every movement, every breath aligned with a singular purpose, where the boundaries between you and the act itself blurred into nothingness? This is not mere concentration. This is the flow state, a realm where the self vanishes and only pure being remains. What if I told you that this state is not reserved for artists or athletes alone? That it is not a fleeting miracle, but a doorway within you, waiting to be unlocked? Why do we so often live on the surface of our potential, unaware of the depths beneath? What would happen if you could summon this clarity at will? If you could step into the river of flow and let it carry you beyond the limits of ordinary existence? Consider the archer who does not think of the bow, only the target. The musician who becomes the music. The writer whose words pour forth as if whispered by some unseen force. These are not acts of effort, but of surrender. A surrender so complete that the mind falls silent and something greater takes its place. But how do we find this elusive state? Is it a matter of discipline or a matter of release? Is it about striving or letting go? The answer lies in a paradox, one that has echoed through the ages, from Zen masters to modern psychologists. A truth so simple yet so profound that it might just redefine how you approach every moment of your life. And so we begin, not with steps or rules, but with a question. What would your life look like if you could enter this state at will? If you could dissolve the noise and touch the essence of everything you do? Imagine a sculptor standing before a block of marble. His chisel strikes not out of force, but out of knowing. He does not fight the stone. He listens to it, and in that listening, the form within reveals itself. This is the heart of flow, a dialogue between intention and intuition, between the will and the unknown. We often mistake focus for strain, as if clarity could be forced into existence. But the highest focus is not a narrowing, it is an expansion, a widening of perception until the self is no longer the center. The runner does not think of her legs, the painter does not think of his brush. They are gone, and what remains is motion itself. Yet our world is built on distraction, on the myth that multitasking is strength, and that busyness is virtue. We fragment our attention, then wonder why we feel hollow. Why does the modern mind resist flow so fiercely? Is it fear of what we might discover in the silence? Or is it simply that we have forgotten how to be still? There is a story of a monk who sat for years in meditation, seeking enlightenment. One day, a bird landed on his shoulder, and in that instant, without thought, without effort, he understood everything. The bird did not bring the answer. The bird was the answer, because in that moment, the monk was no longer separate from the world around him. What if the key to flow is not in adding, but in subtracting? Not in doing more, but in being more? What would you need to let go of to enter that space? What thoughts, what fears, what illusions of control? The ocean does not struggle to be wet. Fire does not strain to burn. They simply are what they are without hesitation or doubt. And yet we, the conscious ones, the ones who can reflect and choose, are so often trapped in our own hesitation. Why do we resist the very state that would set us free? Flow is not a destination. It is a return to the way we were before we learned to doubt, before we learned to fragment ourselves into roles and masks. It is the child lost in play, the artist lost in creation, the warrior lost in the dance of battle. It is the mind remembering its natural state. But here lies the challenge. The ego does not want to disappear. It clings to its narratives, its fears, its need to be in control. And so we must ask, what are you willing to release to touch this state? Are you willing to let go of the need to succeed, to fail, to be seen, to be anything at all. There is a reason why flow often comes in moments of challenge, when the task is just beyond our perceived limits. The mind, faced with impossibility, finally stops arguing, and in that silence, something else takes over. Think of a time when you were so absorbed in something that you forgot to eat, forgot to check your phone, forgot the weight of your own name. That was not an accident. That was a glimpse of who you are beneath the noise. Subtle reminder. If these words resonate with you, consider liking and subscribing, not for me, but for yourself, to remind yourself that this journey is worth continuing. The paradox of flow is that it cannot be pursued directly. It is the shadow that vanishes when you chase it, the whisper that fades when you strain to hear it. You cannot command it, but you can invite it. How? By creating the conditions where it can arise, by removing the obstacles that stand in its way. The musician does not force the melody. She practices until the instrument becomes an extension of her body, until the music plays itself. And so we arrive at the heart of the matter. Flow is not something you do. It is something you allow. It is the universe working through you, the intelligence of life expressing itself in your unique form. But this raises a deeper question. If flow is the absence of the self, then who is the one who experiences it? Who is the one who feels the joy, the clarity, the timelessness? Is there a self beyond the self? A consciousness that remains when the ego steps aside? Perhaps this is the true secret, that in letting go we do not lose ourselves, we find ourselves. The speech continues, the journey deepens, and the questions grow more profound. What if flow is not just a state, but a doorway, a glimpse into a larger reality? What if the reason it feels like coming home is because, in some way, it is? But we are not done yet. There is still more to uncover, more layers to peel back. So stay with me, because what comes next may just change everything. There is an ancient art to seeing, not just looking, but truly seeing, where the observer and the observed merge into a single act of perception. This is the secret behind the flow state, a realignment of attention so complete that the division between you and the world softens like dusk into night. Think of a time when you were so engrossed in a conversation that the room around you faded, when the words flowed without thought and understanding passed between you like a current. That was not mere talking. That was a momentary collapse of separation, a fleeting taste of unity. Why then do we so often live in the opposite state? Distracted, fragmented, pulled in a dozen directions at once. Is it because we fear what we might find in the stillness? Or because we have been taught that productivity means splitting ourselves into pieces? The modern world worships at the altar of divided attention. We mistake scrolling for learning, reacting for engaging, busyness for purpose. But the deepest moments of our lives, those that linger in memory like the last notes of a symphony, are the ones where we were fully present, where we allowed ourselves to dissolve into the experience. So how do we cultivate this quality of attention? How do we train the mind to stop chasing and start abiding? The answer lies not in force, but in fascination, in falling in love with the act itself, not its outcome. A master potter does not think of the vase she is making. She thinks of the clay, its texture, its response to her hands. The vase emerges not because she forces it, but because she listens. This is the essence of flow, an intimate dialogue between the self and the world. But here lies the challenge. We have been conditioned to seek results, not processes, to value the destination over the journey. What if true mastery is not about reaching a goal, but about disappearing into the act of creation itself? Yet, for all its brilliance, flow has a shadow, a hidden cost that few dare to name, because to step into that state is to relinquish control. to surrender the illusion that you are the sole author of your actions. Consider the surgeon in the midst of an operation, hands moving with precision beyond thought, or the climber suspended on a sheer cliff face, where a single misstep means disaster. In these moments, there is no room for hesitation, no space for the ego's second-guessing, only complete trust in the intelligence of the body, the mind, the moment. But what happens when we cling to that state, when we become addicted to the high of total immersion? There are those who chase flow like a drug, mistaking it for escape rather than transcendence, who lose themselves not in the service of something greater, but in the avoidance of life itself. This is the paradox. Flow is freedom, but it can also become a cage. The artist who loses herself in her work may forget to live. The athlete who thrives in the zone may wither outside of it. So we must ask, is flow a means or an end? Is it a door to something beyond, or a room we risk getting trapped in? And perhaps the most unsettling question of all, if flow is the absence of self, who are we when we return? The journey is not over. The deepest layers are yet to be uncovered. Stay with me, because what comes next will challenge everything you thought you knew about focus, about presence, about who you really are. The river does not question its current. The hawk does not debate its dive. Yet we humans stand at the edge of our own becoming, caught between effort and surrender, between doing and allowing. This is the sacred paradox at the heart of flow, that supreme focus is born not from control, but from its relinquishment. Consider the samurai who trains for decades, only to enter battle with empty mind. The years of discipline were never about accumulating skill, but about shedding the need to think. The sword moves not because he wills it, but because he has become the movement itself. Why then do we modern seekers approach mastery backwards? We collect techniques like armor, mistaking accumulation for evolution. We believe if we just find the right hack, the perfect routine, enlightenment will be ours. But flow mocks our strategies. It appears most often when we stop chasing it. There is a story of a young violinist who practiced obsessively, yet always played with tension. One day, her teacher placed a priceless Stradivarius in her hands and said, "This is worth more than your life." Suddenly, her playing transformed, because in fearing to break the instrument, she forgot to protect her ego. The music finally flowed, through her, not from her. What are you holding too tightly in your own life? What would happen if you treated your next act as if it were both sacred and insignificant? If you cared so deeply that you stopped caring at all? Watch a child at play. There is no yesterday's game, no tomorrow's toys. There is only the sandcastle rising now from eager hands. This is the temporal secret of flow. It exists only in the knife-edge present, in that durationless duration where clocks lose their meaning. Neurologists find that during flow states, the brain's timekeeping mechanisms literally shut down. The prefrontal cortex, that anxious timekeeper of past and future, goes quiet. What remains is pure sensory presence, the painter feeling the brush before thought names it, the dancer becoming the dance before language intervenes. Yet, our society worships at the altar of time management. We slice our days into segments, believing productivity lives in the counting of hours. But the most profound moments of human achievement laugh at schedules. Einstein's breakthroughs came during daydreams, not desk hours. The Beatles' best songs emerged in effortless jam sessions, not scheduled writing camps. Perhaps true time mastery isn't about managing minutes, but about dissolving into moments. Not about doing more with time, but about being more through timelessness. When was the last time you forgot to check your phone, not because you were busy, but because you were alive? What activity makes the walls between you and eternity grow thin? Flow is often pictured as solitary, the writer alone at dawn, the climber on a sheer face. But there exists a more mysterious dimension: collective flow. That magical synchronicity when a jazz band stops counting beats and becomes a single organism. When a basketball team moves as one body with 5 pairs of hands. When protesters march not as crowd, but as current. This is where flow transcends psychology and touches the metaphysical. These moments hint that consciousness may not be confined to individual brains, but might ripple between us like waves in a shared ocean. The science confirms it. During collective flow, brain waves synchronize across individuals in measurable ways. Yet, in our hyper-individualized world, we've unlearned this ancient skill of blending minds. We privilege personal achievement over shared transcendence. We've replaced tribal dances with isolated screen time, traded communal rituals for personalized playlists. But the hunger remains. You felt it. That electric charge when a crowd cheers as one, when strangers lock eyes in mutual understanding, when a team achieves that magical state where passes land before teammates realize they're open. What would happen if we designed workplaces, schools, cities for collective flow? If we valued attunement as much as attention? If we remembered that the most powerful state of focus might not be in the zone, but in the US? The exploration continues. The mystery deepens. For we have not yet spoken of flow's darkest waters, its relationship to suffering, to trauma, to those moments when the universe seems to flow through us against our will. Stay with me. The most revealing currents lie ahead.